Okay, guys, what's going on? First of all, again, apologies for the lack of uploads. Mid-August, I'm going to be uploading a lot more. I'm just currently in the process of a very busy period. Once it's all done, I'll say why I've been out for so long. But anyway, this fight is coming up. Terence Crawford versus Viktor Postol is very interesting because, firstly, Terence Crawford is at a significant height disadvantage. I'm not sure if he has ever faced an opponent this tall in his life. I'm assuming he's probably faced people taller than him, but for the most part, he's usually been facing fighters shorter than him, so he has had the height advantage. This is going to be the first fight where he's not going to have the height advantage. But the way I see it is a great fighter who's very skillful will always be able to overcome any sort of height advantage if the other fighter is not also a skillful fighter. And what do I mean by that? I mean, when Manny Pacquiao faced Floyd Mayweather Jr., we saw that Pacquiao was struggling with the height advantage of Mayweather, in addition to the skill, obviously. But I think had Mayweather been a bit shorter and Pacquiao being the same height as Mayweather, I think Pacquiao would have won the fight. I really do. I think Pacquiao would have won that fight. I think Mayweather utilized his height really good in that fight, and he utilized all the skills that were available at his disposal. I think with the mix of stuff, I think Mayweather, obviously, he did the job of Manny Pacquiao. But you've got to look at it like this: if Pacquiao was taller than same height as Mayweather, he'd probably be about another 10 pounds heavier as well. So it's give and take. But anyway, back to what I was saying. I'm a bit rusty actually speaking, like it's a bit crazy, but yeah. Anyway, I've not been doing many videos. But yeah, like I was saying, with Terence Crawford and Viktor Postol, I think you're gonna see a fighter who's gonna be in Terence Crawford, a fighter who's gonna be quite focused on racking up points, but because Viktor Postol's chin is going to be up in the air, because obviously Crawford's going to be the shorter fighter and Postol does fight tall, I think you're going to see glimpses where Crawford's going to catch that chin, which could lead to a knockout. But I definitely think that Terence Crawford is not focusing on the knockout. He's focusing, from the interviews I've seen, things he's been saying, he's definitely focusing on racking up a points victory, and if the knockout presents itself, he will go for that, but he's definitely not focused on a knockout. He's been saying things like, we will see whose jab is better, and I think he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder regarding the trainer of Viktor Postol, which is Freddie Roach, and I think he's got a bit of an issue that people are overrating Freddie Roach and not rating his trainer, and he feels like he's got the better trainer, he's got the better skill, and he comes from the better pedigree, and he wants to prove that in the ring by showing that he's a better boxer than Viktor Postol, and that Freddie Roach is not going to make a difference in this fight, as Viktor Postol is saying, as the people who feel that Viktor Postol is going to win are saying. So I think that's going to play a role, and I also think that the fact that Viktor Postol is taller, people think that maybe Viktor Postol could outbox him. I think he wants to prove them people wrong. And also, in addition to that, I saw an interview where he was asked, what do you think's going to happen? When do you think you're going to win? And he didn't say, I'm going to knock the guy out. He said, I'm predicting a victory, meaning, that he's not going to go for a knockout. If it presents itself, then that's what he'll do. And I think that's a good way to approach the fight. But look, Terence Crawford, there's no point talking about the orthodox and southpaw switch, because although he can fight really good in both stances, I think that he doesn't. You see, it's dangerous. It's very difficult to fight a guy who fights in both stances, because you might struggle against a southpaw, right? And if you struggle at all against a southpaw and you're not used to it, then you're definitely going to struggle when he goes into southpaw stance. And some people do have that issue. But then it's no different to fighting a southpaw. Do you know what I mean? But the thing is, if you fight like someone like, and I'm going to say this, Prince Nassim Hamid or Kell Brook, and I can't really think of any other fighter apart from the Inglekamp fighters who utilize the orthodox and the southpaw stance in the manner that they do, you're looking at a totally different style, because they are able to fight you in orthodox and automatically quickly switch to southpaw. Tyson Fury does it as well, but I don't think Terence Crawford uses it in that sort of format where he'll be orthodox and then automatically switch to southpaw in the middle of combinations, in the middle of walking you down. He'll utilize it in a manner where he'll switch, but he'll do it at some midway point in the fight just to switch for the sake of it, and he does it in a different way. So I don't think that is his main key. I think his main key weapon is actually his beautiful jab, his control of range, his power, his chin, his speed, his overall boxing IQ. I think he's a very complete fighter. I'm expecting the good fighter to be able to control range, to be able to get rid of that height and reach advantage of Viktor Postol by being quicker to the punch, by using his head movement, and by using his superior skill. His control of range is going to be very important in this fight. I think he'll utilize his defense very well, and his defense is going to be very simple. It's going to be head movement, and but more than that, I think it's going to be him utilizing his gloves to parry the punches and to block any incoming punches through the middle. I think he's going to have to come up with counter punches to counter Viktor Postol. So when Viktor Postol uses his straight left jab, I think Crawford's gonna have to obviously come back with some nice little movements in terms of using his angles and also using his head movement and then counter punching over the jab. I think that he needs to do these things to win this fight. When someone's got height advantage, you need to use angles and you need to use head movement to be able, because if you punch when that guy's going to punch, obviously you're going to be at a disadvantage because his punch is going to land on you and you're not going to land on him. So just makes your job with that a little bit more difficult, because you've got to obviously touch the other opponent at an angle, or you've got to use your head movement to hit that person. So you've got to do that a little bit more. But the thing is, when you have less height, you're usually the stronger fighter in there because you've got a broader physique than the person who's taller, because his muscles are going to have to be spread across a longer body, whereas a shorter fighter like Crawford, and Crawford is really heavy at the weight, so he will be carrying power in this fight. I think Postol can crack a bit, but I don't think he's a huge puncher, and for him to outbox Crawford is going to be very difficult. So obviously, I do think like Crawford's got the he's got the edge in this fight, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Terence, Crawford, Viktor Postol, let me know what you think. Comment in the section below and subscribe as always. I don't think Freddie Roach is going to make a hell of a difference in this fight. I think his days are finished as a trainer. I think that he's getting too old. And I do think the Parkinson's is kicking into a point where he's not able to do the same job that he was doing going back about 5 years ago. So I think like Freddie Roach as a trainer, I think he's struggling a little bit. He's not on. He doesn't do the body pad work anymore that he used to do. And I think he's slowing it down a bit with his hands-on approach that he used to have, what made Freddie Roach very effective. But even if he was at his best, I think Terence Crawford will still beat Viktor Postol irrespective. Leave your comment section below, subscribe as always. In a bit, guys.